There's probably about 200 people in the company now. A few years ago, we were probably at about 90. So there's been quite fast growth for ICG. That's been hard to manage at certain times. As you acquire new companies, you find that certain systems no longer work, and you have to change up, and change management is a real issue with growing a company. Startup, we get a lot of companies who come to us and say, I just want a website, I need a website, I've got this idea, and they're just talking about the website as a portal to get information out. But they have a real lack of understanding about how to communicate through that website. So through the website, people see it as a brochure, but it's not. It's a form of interaction with your clients, and you've got to take your clients through the website and get information from them so that you can then communicate with them. So for the basics, what I find is that people say, okay, I've got a domain and I want a website, and someone else is sorting the email and someone else is sorting my finance, but they don't integrate everything together. So the first thing that I suggest to them when people have a startup or are looking to start a product or a company is that you start thinking about the apps that you're going to use to run your company. So choose your finance application, and it could be anything from Xero to QuickBooks, or something much larger. But for a small startup, you're looking at that low end Xero QuickBooks, which is relatively low cost and very simple, and any accountant will manage it for you. So those sorts of apps, finance apps, have a lot of tie-ins with a lot of shopping carts. So if you're selling products or an application, then you'll find that the integration between those two, the shopping cart app that you choose for your website and the finance package is pretty seamless. If you're a retailer, then you'll find that the point of sale software that you use really needs to tie into your finance package, so you don't have to manually transfer transactions from one system to the other, which can be an absolute nightmare. So look at the basic systems that you're going to be using. If you're a creative, then you're probably creating digital information, or you probably want to represent that and store it somewhere. So you're looking at cloud storage would be one of your mission critical apps. So there's plenty of options, but again, they've got to tie into your shopping cart on your website or your customer management system, which again ties into your website. So your website is a portal to a whole bunch of other apps that feed into it. So finance, communications, even your storage and your office tools can all feed into the one portal. So the starting point for most people are to look at their basic tools. So you look at G Suite from Google or Office 365 from Microsoft. So anybody who's come through a tertiary usually has maybe an Office 365 Student Edition, and you can either continue that and upgrade it, or you can move to Google. If you've got an Android phone, you've got a Gmail account, and maybe you just want to get some Google apps. So there's a price point difference, but you need to look at the feature sets of both and say, which ones are more important to me? Is Office really important? Am I using PowerPoint? Am I using Project? Am I using all the features from Microsoft? Or am I just using this as a communications tool and I want something really quick and easy, and I'm quite happy to use Gmail and use the administration portal in Gmail. You'll probably be using some Google apps anyway, so things like analytics for your website all happen in Google. And so there are various tools in Google that you'll already be looking at using, but you might not want the full suite. You might want to use 365 for Office products. For an example, we have people who have created WordPress sites on some platform, but the client has no access to the WordPress site. They just leave it up to the third party. The third party either goes out of business or moves on to something else because they've got another job. The client has no knowledge of how to access their website, how to control their domain. They can't even add users for email, or they don't have any of their access IP. So they didn't control it. They left it in the hands of someone else, and they end up stuck. So they have to start all over again, or it's a real problem for them trying to get access. It's a bit like if you lose your Apple ID and you don't have access to your Apple ID anymore because you used a work account to log into it, and all of a sudden you've left that job, but you've logged in with your Apple ID as your work account, and you don't have access to it, and you can't get access to it because you've left that job. So you're out of luck. Your phone will be locked if you try and reset it, and Apple will not help you. So it's really important that you retain control of your critical IP, and that means all your access, all your passwords to all your apps. Have admin control over everything that you start up. And if you find someone is not willing to give you that access or the logins, then you really need to ask the question, why is that? Do they really control this platform, or is someone else controlling it, or are they outsourcing it but just don't want me to know about it? Because that's what we find is the admin didn't really control it either. They were outsourcing it, and now you're stuck with a website you can't control and cannot make changes to and have no access to. Get your business plan together and to make sure you've got an actual business, but then identify the key things that's are required for that business. So if you're a retailer, then your point of sale is extremely important. If you're starting a cafe, then there are, again, apps that you can get where you're running the FPOS out of your iPad, really cheap and easy, and you can set it up anywhere, so you can go to a market. Or so you identify a suite of apps that you need, and you make sure they all work together. The other thing to look at is the age of the supplier. So there are a lot of startups in the technology world where they look to build an app, get some sort of market hold, and then they sell out to a bigger company or get bought out. So longevity is quite important, because if you've built your business around this single point of failure, and that single point of failure then gets bought out, and the company that bought it out doesn't want to develop it, they want to graveyard it because it's a competitor, then you're facing big bills and restructuring your whole business. So you really need to look at the platforms that you're using and make sure they've been around for a while, that they have a decent community, so that there is other people that you can go and ask about, how I do this. So you'll find online forums for them. If they're a reasonable platform, they will have online communities of their users where you can ask questions, as well as their support. We find that going overseas, and you will have to go overseas for support for some of your applications. And some support is better and some support is non-existent. So even though they say support, test it out before you buy it. Microsoft and Google are extremely well trusted. So they are not going to go out of business anytime soon. They are well supported. You get great support from them. You can call up Google and get a response pretty much immediately. Same with Microsoft. Microsoft, they'll call you back at night, but you can call them up and they will call you back. So those two for those basic business apps, the basic office tools, and you'll find that they have a lot of other things that you didn't really know about, which you will be using. But then for finance packages, again, go for something that's been around for a little while, has a huge user base, and is not going to be sold anytime soon, because you don't want to have to change your finance system at the drop of a hat. So again, for New Zealand, Xero is the go-to finance because it's now got a decent market capitalisation. They're moving into the US, unlikely to be bought out, otherwise they would have been bought out already. Those two will be the keystones, either Google or Microsoft, and someone like Xero as your finance package. From there, then choose a web platform that's well known. So if you're blogging, then WordPress is the go-to platform. If you're creative and you're doing imagery, then you'll probably want something like Squarespace. The one problem that you do get is with payment solutions. So if you're an online retailer and you're selling around the world, you want a payment solution provider, so the person who takes the money and then gives it to you, that is used around the world. In New Zealand, we generally use someone like DPS or Paymark. In New Zealand, we have generally aversion to using PayPal, but around the world, it's well accepted. So identify where your market's going to be, and choose a payment solution provider that is in that market and knows it well. And every person that joins your business needs access to those applications, and you've got to manage access to those applications. Now, maybe you've started to run things at your office, or you've now got an office and you've started getting laptops and you want file servers and you don't want to use the cloud because you really want to retain some control and have it a bit faster. So then you start needing IT support partners, so someone to manage your laptops and your staff's laptops and manage the onboarding and offboarding of people. So you probably have an HR application that you're using, but just adding a person to that HR application and taking them off that HR application isn't going to manage all the other applications that they need access to. The person they were using to register that domain no longer exists, and all of a sudden their emails stop working. Emails are mission critical to everybody. Lack of email in a company will kill you dead. So being out of communication for 5 to 6 days is a real issue. It is a real issue. Collaboration and partnering with the right company has a lot of benefits. It adds a bit more cost, but then you get access to a lot more knowledge. We find that smaller companies will have, say, an IT person who knows a bit about a few things, but they might be a bit of a jack of all trades, but they won't have specific knowledge about Active Directory or some security protocols on their IT infrastructure. Whereas if you partner with a third-party IT support company, you gain access to, say, 20 other engineers who make it their business to know about intranets on SharePoint or your email server and your Office programs, so that you can get the support you need in a timely fashion, rather than someone Googling loads of forums and spending 2 days trying to sort out a small issue. You could get it resolved in half an hour. It can be a lot cheaper in the short term to build your own teams, but as you grow, you probably want to partner with other people. You pay less in the long term and gain access to a lot more knowledge.
Basically, my role is around people and process, basically getting the best out of people. On a day-to-day basis, it's really about juggling what works well, what doesn't work well, making sure we take the feedback of our people, looking at why process doesn't work, and how we can get the best out of the people and the process. I guess from a financial perspective, making sure that what we implement makes the job easier for our people, but also has some financial gains for the company as well. For me, it's looking at, I guess, current workflow. When I go into a business, an existing business, I look at current workflow. I look at the how simple or how intricate the process is. I guess what time-saving solutions can be implemented. So I work with the people on that, because your people know the best about your process. They know what's challenging, they know what's time-consuming. And I guess in a lot of corporates, it is what it is. They don't really go back and sanity check the process. It's worked for 10, 15 years, so the process is the process. So what my role is about at the moment is going back and looking at, again, what works well, what doesn't work well, how can we fine-tune the process. By fine-tuning the process, we're sometimes able to strip overheads out of the business, not essentially make people redundant, but utilise people in better ways in the business. So repurpose that head in the organisation. For me, what I normally do, I use Visio. It's my best friend because I can map out a footprint of machinery. I can map out a business process. I can do lots of different things. I can do an infrastructure diagram. I can do an IT process diagram, and there's lots of prompts in the software that actually help you design your workflow. So for me, Visio is my best friend. So Visio, V-I-S-I-O, it's a Microsoft tool. There's a licensing of about $2,500 for the product, but it's worth its weight in gold. So basically you can do organisation charts, you can do cross-functional process charts, business process mapping. As I said, you can do infrastructure diagrams. There's lots and lots of different things within the tool that I think will help any business owner develop their business. And I think it's about $500. But again, they will still get a lot out of that. You know, obviously it doesn't have all the integration software attached to it, but definitely can help them. So for me, I think once you've got your idea developed and you know who you're going to partner with, you know where you're going to manufacture your product, it's then looking at what systems and process I need to make my business successful. So I need a management information system that will allow me to do quoting, because obviously I need to quote on what my solution is going to cost for my clients. Where do I hold on my clients' information? How do I invoice them? How do I send statements? You really need to have a solid platform. And I think for young people, Xero is great because you can do quoting, you can look after your accounts payable, accounts receivable, you can integrate into your bank account. You can pretty much manage your business very, very well from Xero. And again, you know, yes, there's a cost to the solution, but I think for $30, $35 a month, it's very, very worthwhile. I think the thing for them too is, you know, if it's a manufactured product or even, you know, a kitted product, you have to look at how do I kit my product up. If it's a food product, what are my ingredients? What are the raw costs? How do I mark that up? What markup can I apply? What's going to still make that product viable in the market against my competitor's product? I think a lot of people say, yep, it cost me this, I'm going to sell it for this, but they don't look at the individual components that go with it and think, okay, I can put a higher markup on this than as opposed to this. So I think there's lots of different things around that and setting up the MIS system that's very important. There's so many people out there, you can, I guess, test your idea off. You can bounce ideas, get feedback. I think just the level of people out there that are willing to help. And there's so many organisations that are, you know, put networking events on a regular basis. I say to young people, go to whatever you can. You know, if it's a cup of tea and an opening of a cake, doesn't matter, go. You know, I think you'll get a lot out of it. You know, I mean, I learned a lot through just purely by networking. A brochure, a pamphlet, yeah. It can even, like from a cost-effective solution, it could just be an ad card, you know, promoting their business and their service offering. It's the cheapest form of mail. I think it's about 31 cents, plus the cost of producing the card. So, you know, they can buy a database, or they may even have a database that they want to market to. That's the most cost-effective solution to get their product out into the marketplace. What resources would I need? Obviously, I would have people within my business or my organisation that was developing a quality assurance program. So I would develop that in line with them, and then we would look at how that feeds back into our management information system. We would have a reporting, so I guess like non-conformances around product development. how they came about, how do we rectify them, what is the cost of rectifying them. There's lots of different components that would fall into that, and depending on the product I'm developing would depend on the level of quality assurance program that I develop.